So good morning everyone, and thanks Bernard for the invite and for the introduction. It really is a pleasure to be presenting at the 2021 Hemp Symposium, although looking out the windows, it's rather hard not to feel like I think we should all be outside, either on a sailing boat, pulling some hemp rope, or maybe swimming to Rottnest. So I feel like I am competing with this amazing view. But as a genuine speaker, with a hard act to follow already, it really is a pleasure to be presenting here, and congratulations to Living Earth Projects, to Barb and everyone on the committee for putting on events like this. It really is important that we do pull together people throughout the supply chain and the whole industry. And you know, Anita touched on some really key points that we really need events to enable people to come together and network. And as a new and emerging industry sector, there is that real risk that it becomes, or is, fragmented, with people actually working and operating in isolation. So the more events like this that we can have, the better. And given the scenario with COVID that we've just experienced, we are very lucky here to be able to host events again. And like Anita, I was here just over 12 months ago when Fremantle WA hosted the second National Industrial Hemp Conference, and that was just prior to lockdown. I remember thinking we were very lucky to actually have that event, an in-person conference. So we first got involved in hemp back in 2017, and we've been involved in some detailed research and business growth programs related to hemp and other new industries, where we've really explored the challenges and opportunities that Anita's touched on for innovation across a range of different sectors. And we've specifically spent some time looking at the critical success factors to launching new businesses and new products within an emerging industry, such as hemp, flax, honeybees, bush foods, and meat value chains. And we've looked at the role that innovation and research plays in that new industry environment. So we know that for hemp, it is a complex and versatile plant. And we know that those three key components that Anita's talked about already can be processed and manufactured into an endless array of end products in a number of different categories. And while it is an old crop, there is this renewed interest in hemp, and this is growing globally. And as an old industry, and as it is relaunched into this modern global market with global trends driving growth, we actually need new approaches and to jump out of that status quo, to actually build local industry with successful businesses throughout the value chain. So we actually need a plan to do that, for how we can capture, let me go back a step, for how we can capture the opportunities and explore the challenges and adopt new approaches. And this actually means new thinking for an old industry. So what has been happening? We started looking at hemp in 2017, and a lot has changed and a lot has happened that industry and people in this room should be very proud of. There are new and expanded industry structures. Yes, there's the Hemp Growers Cooperative Group, and there are many groups. And there's a range of new startups that are actually putting new product, innovative product on the market. There's more hemp under production, there are more growers, and we've already been referred to the new hemp processing plant. So back in 2017, when we started looking at hemp, hemp was not yet legalised for food in Australia. And the maximum THC content allowed in a hemp crop was 0.35%. That's now up to 1%. So I found there was an interesting transition period when hemp became legalised for food. I can remember buying packaging that still had old labelling on it. And I see a few heads nodding might have experienced that, not for human consumption, written on the food. So it took a while for markets and industry and product to catch up. But that was also the time when the Department of Primary Industry and Regional Development, in partnership with the Southern Forest Food Alliance and the Manjimup Shire, commissioned us to do a deep dive into the potential of hemp. And while it was focused on Manjimup and Southern Forest Food Area, it really was applicable throughout the state. So this included a global scan of the production and the processing and analysing the whole value chain and products and markets. And it covered from seed and fibre, from production all the way through to the end use. And the results of our work do reveal, and the work we've done with other industry sectors as well, do reveal many key lessons that need to be considered to harness the opportunities and actually manage the risks at a local level as global trends drive consumer demand. So for example, the functional food from processed hemp is labelled as a superfood. As such, hemp and other similar nutrient-packed foods are rising sharply in popularity and consumer awareness. And trends like this are driving consumer demand. And while there are opportunities and challenges throughout the supply chain to capture value from this growth in global demand, our research and pre-feasibility work, not just with hemp but in other industries as well, has identified 8 key focus areas that are critical for success. And they include the plant and its agronomy, cultivar development and varieties, processing technologies and systems, a whole supply chain focus, development of end products in the market, and of course attracting finance and capital. A key lesson is the need to focus on the whole supply chain and to start with the end in mind. That is, specific products into specific markets, rather than a sole focus on production. As was the case with the Canadian hemp industry when they relaunched in 1998. So when they re-legalised hemp in Canada in 1998. So when they relaunched, they took a production focus and they failed to consider hemp suitability to their local area and the hazards of underdeveloped markets. So they launched their restart with a production focus, and the result was oversupply, with no identified or limited markets secured. This resulted in a decrease in grower profit margins, and it resulted, for Canada, this insufficient market development resulted in oversupply and a decrease in price. They're catching up, of course, since then. In contrast, in New South Wales, when hemp cultivation was legalised in Australia in 2004, when it was re-legalised after it was grow the crop, then don't grow the crop, now grow it again, initial interest and investment was put into secondary processing and manufacturing of the end product, with only limited industry development undertaken at the grower and the regional level, and a lack of supply became an issue. That again has been reversed. But hence the need to start with this end in mind. And let's think about some of the key market drivers. Globally, personal health, the superfood label, environmental awareness, and sustainability are driving markets. In the UK, the organic sector is flourishing, with a 12.6% growth in organic sales in 2020. And a lot of this was driven by online sales, fueled by COVID. So what do we mean by this term superfood, just as an example of a market driver? It's a buzzword. It's used by industry and markets to differentiate their product and increase market growth. And in general, they're classified as a whole food, high in fibre, antioxidants, mineral or vitamin content, and with the right balance of fatty acids. And this equals extra healthy from a marketing point of view. And this market's not to be ignored. Oops, have I skipped ahead too fast? Sorry. It's actually growing at a phenomenal rate. Between 2011 and 2015, there was a staggering 202% increase globally in the number of new food and drink products launched containing the terms superfood, superfruit or supergrain. And Australia is a key player in this expanding and emerging market, second only to the US in its share of newly launched superfood labelled products. And the launches come, all these superfood launches are coming as a result of consumer demand for highly nutritious products. And it is expected that this growth will continue to increase over the short to medium term. I would say much more over the long term as well. So why talk about these global market drivers and focus on terms like superfood or organics and their rise in popularity? Trends like these terms, superfood, they are driving consumer habits and growth in demand. And we know with hemp it has a complex supply chain with an estimated 25,000 to 50,000 end users from its fibre and seed. So to establish a strong sector, a strong hemp sector in WA, we need to start with a market approach. And we need to establish a strong hemp to establish a strong hemp sector in WA, we need to start with the market and the end product in mind, and the end market in mind. And this means a whole supply chain approach. It requires a focus on cohesive industry development based on collaboration and cooperation throughout the supply chain. It requires key strategic decisions related to specific products for clearly identified markets. And to achieve this, industry development requires fully developed supply chain relationships. And currently, for an emerging sector like hemp, we don't have fully developed supply chain relationships. And that's normal for an emerging sector. But this makes it hard for supply chain participants to fully commit for the long term. So we need to underpin this with clear communication and awareness of what are the key risks and what are the challenges. But given this scenario, there is the opportunity to establish dedicated value chains with aggregation of supply at the grower level to achieve scale, reliability of supply and quality. And we see that happening now. Since 2017, there's been a real effort in this regard at a number of different levels related to people here. On the demand side though, we need knowledge of the specific product, and this is crucial for decision making. For hemp, we know that this is particularly important as the variety grown is crucial to meet specific and market and end product requirements. If you want rope, you need to grow a fibre-based crop. If you want a superfood in a hemp shake, you need to grow a grain-based crop. So we need to be very clear on the variety we're growing and for the market we are seeking or aiming to get to. So for hemp, this is really important. And for growers and processors at the supply end, we need to be very clear on these markets that we're entering. And this needs new approaches, especially considering hemp has this complex supply chain, depending on the end product. So let's consider market requirements. For hemp, most accounts of its potential markets that it's suitable for are for existing substitutes for existing raw materials. Therefore, to be economically viable, not just technically feasible, hemp products need to meet at least one of the following category or criteria. They need to be cheaper than competing products, or they need to be technically superior to competing products. Maybe talk to Anita, are those plastic oil-based ropes more superior or less superior than the rope-based ones? They need to have environmental benefit that can be turned into an economic advantage, or they need to have a novel use with no competitors, or they need to be able to retail into a niche or luxury market where cost is not a driving factor, so a premium product, a premium price. For example, hemp milk might be considered a novel use and potentially a niche market as well. Or supplying hemp oil or seed in longer shelf life packaging can help compete through its superior market appeal. There's an endless array examples we could use. Beer, gin. I heard about the gin distillery in East Perth on the way here is doing hot cross bun gin. Get a bit of that for Easter in East Perth. I think I'd be dead before lunch. These are really critical decisions for business. They are really critical business decisions. So let's go back a step. It is individual businesses that make up supply chains, and that's the relationships we're talking about, because they all interact. They don't operate in isolation. While they all have their own very inherent, very different business models, they all have the same purpose: to create value for a customer market segment, deliver that value to them, and capture value back to the business. And for this to work, we need to start with the end in mind. And this means partnerships and collaboration throughout the supply chain. They are critical for growers, processors, manufacturers, distributors, everyone in the supply chain. To harness the opportunities and manage the challenges presented by hemp as a nutrient-packed superfood or superior natural fibre, a market approach is required that considers grower supply at one end and consumer demand at the other end. And yet here we have the traditional linear view, where if you are the grower at one end, it can be hard to see the end customer at the other end. So what we need is new thinking and market approach to supply chain development, where growers, processors, manufacturers, packers, distributors, academics, researchers, everyone works in greater cooperation in a values cycle, rather than that linear traditional view of a supply chain. A few years ago, we did some work with the Sheep Industry Business Innovation Project, and we ran some stakeholder workshops with producers, processors, high-end restaurant owners, and some of Perth's top chefs. It was an amazing experience because it was the first time they had been in the same room. It was the first time that they had spoken with other people participating in the exact same value chain. It was the first time they had heard of the issues and the concerns, the challenges that they deal with. It was a powerful experience, and it was quite astounding to see the lights going and the pennies dropping. And hence, the emphasis on what we're talking about with this value cycle approach, which when underpinned by research, this new model and approach has potential to deliver greater return to all in a value cycle that puts the target market right at the centre, and that pulls the individual businesses to create, deliver and capture value, that inherent purpose of a business model. To help achieve this though, our work across industry sectors, especially the emerging ones like hemp, shows that an essential component that our research has shown is the need for an overarching industry hemp development strategy. So we're excited about the opportunities and the direction that the WA hemp industry is taking. And we look forward to exploring with more collaboration this old, new industry with innovation and new thinking in the future. So thank you.